Hello, members. Welcome to one and all of you. There's probably many of you I haven't met before. My name is Anna Spooner, and I was a tastings and events manager at the Wine Society for many years. And for the last, nearly 2 years since I moved to France, to the Rhone, I've been consulting with the Wine Society, and I was so thrilled, they've let me present this exciting, really special 150th anniversary Zoom. So I couldn't be happier to see some faces I recognize, or some names I recognize on the chat. I'm joining you today from the Highlands because I actually had a baby 9 weeks ago yesterday. So I'm with my husband's family who are doing childcare and allowing me to host this event. We've also got Simon Rogan with us, who is just coming on camera now, and he is joining us from Hong Kong. So, I'll just unmute you there, Simon. Sorry. So, cheers, Simon. Hi.
How are you doing?
I am very well,
I'm
thank you.
doing
How are
very well over
you?
here, thank you.
Good.
We've just come through the typhoon, which has been quite exciting. I mean, to be quite honest, it is no stronger than our good old Lake District storms that we have. So I think they were making a real something about nothing, really. I mean, but you know.
Well, we're honestly so thrilled you can join us, Simon. Simon, for anybody who's seen him present one of these events before, it was an absolute no-brainer for us to ask him to join our anniversary event. His food is by far the best meal kits we've ever used at the Wine Society, and he's a wonderful, passionate presenter. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hand
No,
over in a
thank you.
moment and I'll ask you to tell us a little bit about what you're up to in Hong Kong. Um, but I'd
Yeah.
also just like to say we've got Mahesh behind the scenes. So it's titled Tastings Team. If anybody's having any connection problems or concerns about what to do when, please write in the chat. But also, please write what you're writing now, which is let us know where you're joining us from. Hopefully, many of you will have these little packs, as I do. These are the 6 still wines. So that's the Chardonnay, the 3 red wines, the Sauternes, and the port. If you are tasting the champagne, which I've already seen a few, I've just had a private message from someone accidentally sending it privately saying it's wonderful. But if you are tasting the vintage champagne, lucky you. Otherwise, hopefully you have all 6 of those wines in the packs or in the bottles. And if you don't worry. Simon's going to entertain you and regale you with tales, and I'll hopefully tell you a bit about the wines, as well as, quite differently for this event, we are going to have videos from all 7, pardon me, of the producers. Now, the reason that we're doing it slightly differently this time is because for our 150th anniversary, we split generally our releases called the Generation Wines, which were our everyday wines, into 4 eras. And there was a second range we created, which was this fine wine anniversary range. And we asked 7 producers to come and present in person at 7 events across the UK. But as you know, I'm a big fan of the online events, allowing people to taste at home in Hong Kong, in the Highlands, wherever it may be. Mahesh down in Stevenage. So wherever it may be, these events allow you to taste along, to mimic the experience that other people are having in these 7 locations. And actually, what's amazing is that we are going to be showing these same 7 wines with very, very similar pairing menus to over 1,200 members and their guests simultaneously today. So I'm delighted, and I'm so pleased so many of you are joining us on the online. And for anyone joining on the recording on YouTube, then I'm really pleased as well. So we don't know how many guests will be doing the online, but by all means, it's definitely well over 2,500 total people who are going to be tasting these wines simultaneously today. So we're thrilled. That's why we have the videos, because as nice as it would be, we can't invite all 7 producers to speak in one place and then speak online as well. Logistically, it would probably send me to an early grave. The 9-week-old baby bags are bad enough anyway. So what we're doing instead is we're going to show you 7 special videos that they recorded specifically for this event, which is very exciting. So that's enough of the admin. If you have any questions as well, we do have time for a Q&A with Simon, which I'm thrilled about. That's always really good to hear questions, unrelated to the evening. You can ask questions as we go along, and I can chip them in for you on your behalf. But if you have anything that you'd like to ask him, we do have 15 minutes at the end. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Simon. For those who've never met him before, you may well or likely have heard of his most famous 3-star Michelin restaurant, L'Enclume. He was a pioneer in focusing on British ingredients and setting up this idea of a farm, and the connection between the restaurant and the farm is incredible. He's got other Lake District restaurants, ventures in London, Hong Kong, which I'd love you to tell the guys today a little bit about. Also more recently, Malta and Thailand as well. And then it was in 2020 that he started these Home by Simon Rogan kits. So I had great fun tasting the menu, which I should say is completely bespoke to the Wine Society today. It was lovely, and his kits, like I mentioned, are the best I've ever tasted, and I've done my fair few. So Simon, tell us a little bit about what you're up to in Hong Kong.
So obviously we've got 3 restaurants here, which are very, very important to me. So I do venture out to them, 4 or 5 times a year to make sure they're all running tickety-boo, as it were. But this is a special time of year to come to Hong Kong for me, because it's the graduation of our academy students. So when they're finishing their 2.5-year course, day release course to Kendall College and working experience at our restaurants in the Lakes, they graduate with a fully expensed trip to Hong Kong. I mean, I wish I was an apprentice again, going through training process. So no, they've been holed up at relative squalor in the Rosewood Hotel, no less, one of the best hotels in the world. And they've been cooking a couple of dinners with their counterparts from ICC, which is the catering college in Hong Kong. So it's a celebration of graduation for both colleges, and they get to see Hong Kong and spend some time in our restaurants as a final treat before they embark onto full-time employment. So it's great for them, obviously a great inspiration for them, and I enjoy showing them what Hong Kong's all about. It's a great city.
Well, I'm very, very jealous, I'll be honest. The Highlands,
Yeah.
you said you've got a typhoon. We've got questionable weather up here in the Highlands, but I can't even imagine the incredible cuisine that you're preparing and eating out there. So
yeah, I mean, it's good because obviously Roganic, our first restaurant in Hong Kong, is actually moving. So it's closing in a couple of weeks. It's moving to a new site, which hopefully we can really up the standards and take it a bit further than what it has achieved so far. So yeah, quite exciting times in Hong Kong at the moment. So yeah, very looking forward to it.
amazing. Well, yes, I can't reiterate enough how grateful we are to have you in person, or virtually, pardon,
Thank
in
you.
person to share
No worries.
in
Glad
this
to be here.
evening, or well, evening for you, daytime for us. So
Evening for me, yes. Yeah, late evening
exactly,
for me.
a late night for you. So what we'll do for the first round
Mm.
is, because there's truffle pudding, champagne, and then we're going to move swiftly into the salmon afterwards. I'm going to share the video of we've got a very short video. I know not many of you have the champagne, so we have a very short 1-minute video. It's kind of a quick one. The videos that come later, members, are subtitled, so don't worry. And they're also of a higher quality. This is just a quick video to get us going. So for anyone who has the 2012 champagne, they can get an idea. Or if you've not got the 2012 champagne, there is some still for sale. So I'm just going to quickly share this video, and then Simon and I will come back. I'll mention a little bit about the champagne, and then we'll move on to the starters and the and the Chardonnay. And don't worry, everyone, we will guide you through every step of the way. So without further ado, here is Olivier Dupré from Alpha Gracian for, I think, a grand total of a minute to talk about the Chardonnay, the champagne, pardon me.
Dear Wine Society member, I'm very pleased and very honored to be here today to present the Wine Society champagne that has been chosen for the 150th anniversary. I am Olivier Dupré, the president of the company. I remember in January 2013 when Marcel came to the winery to taste the best wine of the harvest 2012. He was so happy with the quality that he decided, together with Nicolas, our winemaker, to make this wine. The wine was blended then. It's a 67% Chardonnay and half Pinot Meunier and Pinot Noir for the remaining. The wine was bottled in 2013, then stayed more than 10 years in the cellar at a very cold temperature. It was disgorged last year, and the result was in your glass. I hope you like it. It's a very, very nice product, and you know that we are very special linked to the Wine Society because our story started in 1906. So a happy birthday to the Wine Society, long life, and enjoy the rest of the lunch.
Fabulous. So, as I said, a short and sweet message from our oldest supplier there. So it's not one of the original suppliers at the Wine Society. Obviously, our birth date or our inception date was 1874. And as you heard then, it was the early 1900s we started working with, not with Olivier himself, of course. I nearly said Olivier, with Alfred Gracian Champagne. And it was they are our longest surviving, as it were, supplier. So they still exist, we still exist, and our partnership has grown from strength to strength. So it's a 2012 vintage. It's 67% Chardonnay, as you just heard, and then half and half of Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. 2012, it was actually an exceptional year due to low yields because of disease and frost at the beginning part of the year, which normally indicates you're going to have problems. But actually, come September, the fruit that had remained was exceptionally good. So really, really bright, fresh acidity, which means that it has this long capacity to age. You don't need to declare a vintage every year in Champagne. You can make your non-vintage blended wines. But actually, the Alpha Gracian chose to make this wine. And as you've heard, it was Marcel Orford Williams, who has recently retired, but was actually the Champagne buyer at the time, before Sarah Knowles, the current Champagne buyer, took over. And he was the one that really truffle hunted this wine. He knew it would age well. He said, we can have this 2012 vintage for our 2024 anniversary. And quite rightly too. They first ferment the wine in Burgundy barrels, which is very interesting. It makes a more rich, complex wine. And then actually they stopped what we call malolactic fermentation. So that's when there's a conversion of the malic acid that you find in an apple into a milky acid, and that's much rounder and softer. They actually prevented that, and by doing so have preserved this amazing lively palate. I don't have a bottle here, and I could not be more sad. I have my tasting pack and not my champagne, but Mahesh has sent a link on the chat if you're interested. £55 this champagne is, and it was really designed to go with the truffle pudding. So what I'm going to do now is hand over to Simon to tell you a bit about the truffle pudding and then also about the starters, which will allow you to go and prepare the starters and come back to talk about the second wine, which is our Chardonnay. So Simon, the truffle pudding has got something a little close to your heart, am I right? It's an incredible thing.
Yeah, it's one of those little signature snacks that normally appears on our menus around the world. So it was basically, imagined as a savory bread and butter pudding, basically. So it's layers of croissant, which are sliced and then baked in a truffle custard. And then they're just either quite simply, like you've got tonight, sauteed in a little bit of butter to make it crispy on the outside, and you've got some black garlic emulsion, but it's normally got a different variation depending on where you're eating it around the world. So if you're eating it at L'Enclume, it's it's normally glazed in birch sap. If you eat it in Malta, it's glazed in carob honey, which is like a type of cocoa bean, basically, that grows wild on the island Malta. And then if you eat it in Thailand, in Phuket, it's glazed in banana molasses. So it's always got that little connection with the surroundings that it's served in. But essentially, it's a savoury bread and butter pudding, which is truffle in flavour. Some have truffle grated on top, some has cheese grated on top. Really depends on the mood and where you are. So yeah, it's one of our favourites.
Oh, well, I have to
And
say
then
it's
I'd say,
one of
yeah,
my
I'll go.
husband's favourites too.
Yeah, cool. It's a lovely full flavoured little bite. So, and then you've got the starter afterwards. So you've got some lovely pine cured salmon, some Scottish salmon from up there in Loch Duart, some fennel remoulade, some raw beans which have been pickled in dill vinegar. You've got some rye bread, which is from a local baker close to us up in Cartmel called Lovingly Artisan. You've got broad bean oil and some dill cress as well. So, it's quite acidic, the dish. I mean, pickling is one of our favourite techniques. Obviously, for preserving food during the winter months when there's a lot less on our farm to choose from. So yeah, a real taste of our farm on this dish with the fennel and the broad beans coming from that farm. Yeah, it's got a lovely flavour to it.
Fabulous. And then
And sort of I think
I was going to
yeah.
ask
So I mean, when we
vegetarian
tried,
alternative.
yeah.
Oh, Simon.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So the vegetarian alternative is like a pickled turnip, which is
Mm.
also from our farm, just to replace the salmon on the dish.
And out of interest,
So yeah, when
what
we
about the
tried,
turnip made you want to, what is it about the idea of a turnip? Because I find that fascinating. Your menu was so well created with really clever replacements. So I found it very
yeah.
interesting to know why turnip for salmon.
So I'm a great fan in taking humble ingredients and elevating them into the stars of the show, so to speak. So things like turnips, cabbage, and items like that. To have them first and foremost as the star of the show is quite important to me. And the way it's been manipulated is hopefully not going to make you move if you're eating the turnip. So hopefully that's the case.
Amazing. So what we'll do is we'll pop up our next screen. We'll allow you to take a break to prepare it to come back. I think we need 10 minutes. So Mahesh, if you'll allow people to come back at 1 o'clock UK time, that's when we'll all return. It's just putting together the starter, so hopefully that will give you enough time. And then we will allow you to do that, and then we'll show you the video of the Chardonnay whilst we taste the Chardonnay. So do think about the things that Simon's just talked about, where things have come from, and we'll discuss a little bit about the pairing when we return. Fabulous. Thank you. Hello again. I hope that that allowed you all enough time to prepare your starter, whether it was the turnip or the salmon. I I know that it's these events can be a little busy, especially if you're doing multiple. Some people have ordered multiple kits for, a group of friends. So by all means, if we're going a little bit too fast, please say. The joy of this course is it's not too much cooking, but the joy of all of Simon's meal kits actually are that they've done all of the hard work for you. So I do hope that that gave you enough time. Please write in the chat if you ever need more time. We obviously can't delay just for one person, but if lots of people need more time, we will pause. So, the next part of the puzzle, as it were, is that I'm going to be playing a small video about the Chardonnay. And that will come from the producer and the man himself, Michael Brakovich, MW. So he is the proprietor of Kumu River, but also, as you may have just heard, a master of wine. So he knows what he's talking about. And then I will do a tasting, and Simon and I will talk about why he and his team chose the particular dish to go with the wine as well. I just wanted to say I'm conscious that I didn't do it earlier and I may have missed the boat completely, but I'd feel it would be remiss of me not to. If you've never used these before, I'm going to show you. I've already poured my white wine, so I'm going to show you with my Barolo for shortly later. Oh, I've just spilt mine. Don't squeeze. I was going to say don't squeeze it too tight, but you do want to cut along the top. So once you've opened the top, cut along, don't squeeze it too tight. You'll get a red wine explosion. Then you have your pouch and you can just very, very easily pour it in. Gosh, what a gorgeous color Barolo that is. If you're having problems, we do have some YouTube videos, but we have improved the packaging. So hopefully those are nice and easy for you. And sorry for not saying sooner. But yes, onto the Chardonnay video. So this is a short video from Michael. I hope that you enjoy it. And then Simon and I will be back to talk about the pairing itself. Oh, bear with me, sorry.
Hello, I'm Michael Brakovich, Master of Wine and winemaker at Kumu River Wines in Auckland, New Zealand. Our vineyard and winery was started by my late father, Matty Brakovich, in 1944. The company has changed and developed over the years, is now run by my mother Melba, my sister Mariana, and my brother Milan and my brother Paul. We all cover various aspects of production and marketing in the company. Our association with the Wine Society goes back to the 1980s when we first met Sebastian Payne, who was introduced to us by our then agent Hugh Phillips, and we've been selling wine through the Wine Society ever since, including on many occasions the exhibition Chardonnay. Now the 150th anniversary wine that we're showing today is a blend of two of our best single vineyard Chardonnays. It comes roughly half from the Coddington vineyard in Kumu, which always gives us the ripest and richest expression of Chardonnay, much more peachy than many of our other vineyards. And that has been made in barrels that have quite a heavy toast and char with some new oak. And the other half is from our Matty's vineyard, which is a bit more textural. It comes from our oldest vines, planted back in 1990, of the Mendoza clone, which has a lot of hen and chicken, and that gives us this texture and density and concentration on the palate. And that component comes from barrels that are older. So the blend of the two, it gives us a very interesting mixture. And after 4 or 5 years of bottle age, the oak has retreated somewhat, allowing the fruit to come forward, allowing the bottle development, the bottle bouquet to come out. It's nice and toasty now, but most impressively on the palate, the texture is beautiful. It's got a lovely firm, almost tannic texture, lovely acid at the finish, and right on the end a slight mineral saline character which just finishes the wine beautifully. The wine was produced by harvesting the grapes by hand, so we get the best quality fruit into the winery. It is whole bunch pressed and the juice goes into barrels for fermentation. We only use wild yeast fermentations, followed by a malolactic fermentation to moderate the acidity, and then quite an extended period of time on the yeast lees in the barrel before it's racked and then filtered and bottled. I think this wine is going to go particularly well with the smoked salmon dish because it will match up really well with the richness and the slightly smoky character, and it will go very well with the vegetarian option too.
Hello, everybody. So hopefully you heard that okay. We did have a comment from a member. It was quiet at the beginning, so I have turned up the volume. Obviously, if it's now too loud for you, please do feel free to turn your volume down. We did volume adjust all the videos to a similar level. So please, again, if you can't hear, then let us know in the chat. So I'm going to tell you a little about the wine. We've had a question which I will answer as well. And then we're going to reintroduce Simon back to talk about the pairing, which is a beautiful pairing, I have to say. So a tiny bit more about the wine is really to introduce Kumeu River themselves. They're very famous in the world of wine, despite not really coming from the famous region. So they're not from Marlborough in New Zealand, where all the famous Sauvignons are grown. In fact, they're further north, which, because being in the southern hemisphere is closer to the equator, you would think would be perhaps a warm red wine growing area. In Auckland, but actually they have incredible sea influence in the Kumeu vineyards, and they specialize in Chardonnay, but they also grow some incredible Pinot Gris. So if you have opportunity to try those wines, please do. The main thing is that the wines are often have this sort of smoky element to them. They do a lot of work with texture. They do a lot of work with something called reduction. So making sure that the wines aren't excessively oxidized, which is quite incredible. They're really, really unique, almost Burgundy-esque wines. And they produce a very specific flavor, which is almost internationally recognized. And I always think of it as an MW classic for the Master of Wine exams. You know, you should know what Kumeu River tastes like. And funnily enough, I have a Master of Wine friend who's currently sat in the Oxford tasting. And they text me at the first wine and said it was amazing, and they've just texted me again saying the Kumeu Chardonnay is very Kumeu Chardonnay. So they definitely it definitely has this international stamp that nobody else seems to be able to replicate anywhere. Obviously, the things that Michael spoke about, like stirring the lees in, that brings this slightly yeasty flavor. The fact that they're blending two parcels together just adds complexity. And the barrel age, I think, is very interesting on this. So 2019 vintage. So we've had a bit of barrel and also a bit of bottle age. So we've got some great complexity. If you're finding it a little closed, I strongly encourage you to give it a swirl. A tiny bit of oxygen really brings this wine to life. And I'm getting that lovely it's almost like peaches on the barbecue almost. It's got smoky but very, very fruity core to it and incredible acidity. So before I answer the questions on the wine, I'm going to move to Simon and ask him to tell us a little bit about why the team paired this particular wine with the starter. With both starters are amazing. So I'm going to hand over to you, Simon, for a moment.
So I mean, when we tried the wine, we created this dish because we thought these ingredients really worked. Although the wine has got a hint of peach in it, I think it also shows the greener fruit characteristics. That I think really pair well with the fennel and the broad bean. And I think there's also like a real textural, creamier body part of the wine, which I think complement the oiliness of the fish and the savory flavors in the rye bread. So we thought it was a really lovely, refreshing pairing, which obviously went very well together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think those those tart green flavors you've just mentioned are something that maybe Michael undersold slightly in the video, because there's this amazing kind of under ripeness to the wine.
Yeah.
And I think
Yes.
that you're quite right, that and fennel is just a match made in heaven. That kind of sweet but also bitter complement is
Mm.
lovely.
Mm.
And then you
Mm.
beautifully described the texture better than I did. But that is coming from that lees
Oh.
stirring as well. So getting those yeast mixed in the barrel adds this incredible element of richness in the mouth. It's a wine that's quite interesting because you can drink
Yes.
it straight out the fridge and it's very refreshing, but it's it's a whole other kettle of fish when you allow it to warm up slightly. It's horses for courses, whatever people prefer to taste. But for me, I like to have it slightly warmer because that texture really starts to show itself a bit more. Um,
Mm.
Tracy has said, love the pairing. The turnip is delicious. Love that us veggies are never shortchanged by Simon Rogan at home. So that's great.
Absolutely. Stars of the show. Stars of the show.
I think that's quite right too. Yeah, I often
Mm.
think that, Tracy, that you as a vegetarian are if anything, yeah, you get an exceptional meal. So I have had a quick question as well, because Michael mentioned, I think, hen and chicken in the video, and somebody has asked, what does that mean? It's actually a problem with it's not a problem. It could be deemed as a problem for some wines. The Mendoza clone of Chardonnay is particularly susceptible to it. And it's actually called, in English, I think it might be French, Milorandage. And it's where some of the grapes are larger than the others. So you see it a lot in Chardonnay. There are other varieties that do it, but in particular, this clone of Chardonnay is notorious. So you get these big chunky berries that are kind of the fruity ones. And then you get these smaller berries, they call them the chicken berries. They're seedless and they can be very, very bitter. So they've got like a mixture of flavors in them. Now, it's one of the reasons that lots of people use particular clones of Chardonnay. So although it's actually supposed to be a problem, what it does do is it adds huge amounts of complexity. And if you can imagine, so the Sauternes that we'll be trying shortly, if you imagine that in the vineyard, they have to go through and pick several times to get that complexity of different levels of fruit set effectively. So we get very, very sweet towards the end of harvest and very, very bitter at the beginning of harvest based on how ripe the fruit is. These particular clones of Chardonnay do it within one bunch. So it's some people love it, some people hate it. It just gives this very interesting style of lots of different types of fruit within one pick of the Chardonnay. So I hope that was a reasonable explanation. So in your restaurant, Simon, just before we move on, because we do have a couple more minutes before we need to move on, are there any styles of wine that you find easier to pair? So is it, I love personally this type of Chardonnay where you have lots of different fruit characters, bitter, some saline, some smoky. There's a lot of elements to work with. Are there any wines that you go, right, this I already see the vision. I can pair this with X, Y, and Z?
Well, I mean, obviously, my answer always used to be champagne.
Yeah.
I think champagne works very well with our menu. Obviously, now that's transferred to English sparkling with all the amazing bottles that are on offer now in the UK. So for me, that's the perfect accompaniment to our food. A really nice, crisp, refreshing glass of English sparkling, really.
Amazing. I must admit, I wasn't
I mean,
expecting that
there's so
answer.
many to choose from now as well.
Yeah, what a great answer.
Sorry.
Well, no, what a great answer. I wasn't expecting it. And I think people undervalue sparkling wine with food pairings. Would you have been happy to pair? I would have, if anyone's got any more of that champagne left. I'm sure that actually is probably a lovely pairing with this course too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would have definitely, if it was on the list, definitely had it right up there to be a great accompaniment as well.
Yeah, I think just based on, so one thing I didn't mention about this range is we've been well, the Wine Society buyers have been working on these wines, not just these ones, but the whole range of wines for well, up to 20 years. I mean, and we've got the Mendoza we're tasting today, I think is the oldest in the range, a 2007 vintage. So this has kind of been a bit of a legacy project, this anniversary range. There were a few that snuck in over the last couple of years, but perhaps, you know, in the next big birthday, the 200th birthday, I have no doubt that English sparkling wine is going to feature very heavily in our own ranges as it
Yeah,
continues.
I think the French are very worried for sure. I mean, you know, the quality that they're sort of you know, displaying rapidly, if you like. Yeah, it's something to really to look forward to in my book.
Great. And Ken and Co has also said Welsh sparkling also excellent. I agree. We're not getting any sparkling wine up here in the Highlands, but I've had my fair share of drams over the over the last
Yeah.
couple of days. But yeah, Welsh sparkling also fantastic. So what I'm going to ask now, if it's all right, Simon, is if you would be able to explain a little bit about the elements of the main course. We'll do the tasting afterwards, but if you could explain a bit about the elements, maybe which producers you're using, where you're sourcing some of the ingredients,
Yeah.
so that people can use their imaginations when we ask them to scuttle off and prepare that course.
Sure. So for the main course, we got some lovely Dexter beef, some short rib to be exact, and for vegetarians, we got a lovely braised parsnip in substitute, and then to garnish that dish, we've got celeriac in various forms from our farm again. So I mean, we choose the beef from a farm near us, which is supplied through Lake District farmers. So a supply that we use up here in Longcombe, all our restaurants for our beef. See, short ribs chosen for its wonderful texture and flavor. You know, if it's cooked well. For me, it's a rival for Wagyu in texture and flavor. No problem. And then garnish it with these lovely our farm celeriac. So we've got various disguises of it there. So we've got the pieces marinated as like a marinated of the flavors of our farm, like herbs and vegetables. We've got a lovely smooth puree, which is caramelized, so it's like a really deep, rich flavor to it. And then you've got the sauce of the celeriac as well, because obviously we like to use every part of the vegetable to in different ways, which has been fermented, but gives it a lovely acidity as well. And then that's finished off with some parsley oil to provide nice color and also some herbaceous flavor, and then a few farm shoots that we're clinging on to now for the rest of the summer, early autumn. They're still around a little bit, so it gives it a summery feel to it as well. So a lovely dish, bags and bags of flavor, different layers, something that you can devour very, very quickly.
Beautiful. I have a quick question about parsley oil before we send everyone off. Do is that something that you make en masse? Because it's such a lovely feature of the dish, and I'd quite like to make some at home, if I'm honest with you. When members smell it, when they open it, and when they start to use it, they might be really excited and they're the same way inclined.
Yeah, exactly. It's just parsley just blended in rapeseed oil, basically in a food blender. We do make things en masse, of course. We make lots of oils and of various things, trying to trap those summer flavors. For the future months when we haven't got those ingredients around, and we vacuum pack them and freeze them, so we have got those flavors. So very, very easy to make. Just simply you need a really good food blender.
Amazing. Yes. And I think on a previous call with Tom, one of your chefs, we had a big discussion about this idea of preservation at particularly at obviously the Lake District restaurants, where you have such a limited season, a growing season, and this idea of
Yes.
preservation of flavor that you can use throughout the whole year, it hugely appeals to me. So yes.
Yeah, it's very, very important, of course. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, in which case, so we're going to leave everyone, I think, for a half an hour break. So let's rejoin at 50 past the hour. So whether you're in Hong Kong or the Highlands or Kent or wherever you've joined us from today, that will allow you 25 minutes, which will give you ample time to prepare the course, but also maybe 5 minutes if you wanted to pop your previous plates in the washing up. What I will ask though is that you do remember to join us with the Barolo, the Rioja, and the Malbec in order. So I've just poured mine out to the side here. I've only got 2 hands, so I can't have all 3. But you're in that order, please. Barolo, Rioja, Malbec. So it's the order that will have come in your notes pack. If you're tasting by buying the whole bottles, that's also the order that was on the website, but Mahesh will just also include that on the slide as we go. But just if you're struggling to see, the color of the Barolo is incredibly different. I'm looking down at the Rioja and the Malbec now. They're quite similar. If you have got a marker pen to hand, a lipstick, a eyeliner, anything, you might want to number those or just put a R for Rioja and an M for Malbec. Or if you're being very well behaved and having a civilized lunch and not had too much wine already, then maybe you'll be able to keep them from left to right. But Barolo, Rioja, and then Malbec, please, everyone. And we will see you at 50, so 1:50 UK time. And we'll see you then. Thank you all. Pardon me. Hello, members, and welcome back. I can see that some of you are already seated with your food, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm glad that the cooking times and instructions seem to have been a bit more generous and allowed you to get ready rather than rush too much. So what I think is a good idea, because so many of you do have the food in front of you, I think what I'd like is, before I show the videos, it might seem counterintuitive, but I don't want you to finish the food before Simon gets to tell you about why he chose the particular dishes, the meat and the vegetarian option. So I'm going to ask Simon if he'd like to speak first. But members, please, please, please leave a little bit of wine in each of your glasses, because as soon as Simon has spoken, we will hear from the 3 wine producers and their videos. So I'll hand over to Simon first whilst the food is hot and delicious on your plates, but then we will hear from the producers shortly afterwards. Thanks, Simon.
I think my team and I thought, the wines with their age and tannins would stand up to really big red meats. So obviously we chose short rib, which I think the tannins will really melt through the proteins and the fat and really attack the main course. I think acidity in the wines also really will stand up to the fermented sauce, which has its own sort of gentle tang, if you like. And also the caramelized flavors in the celeriac puree will work well with the dried plum flavors of the Malbec, and the earthiness of the dish will, I think, be a perfect pairing for the Malbec's tertiary, more earth notes. So I think it was difficult with these 3 to really choose a favorite, because I really enjoyed them all. But that's why we chose those 3 in particular.
Amazing. Yeah, I couldn't agree more actually on some of the points about acidity for 3 older wines, and we have picked a tasting order that's young to old. And I'll let the producers describe them for themselves. But I would say the unifying factors you've actually perfectly highlighted there, Simon. Unifying factors of these 3 wines are this sort of mellowed tannin. So the Nebbiolo is surprisingly mellow on the tannins. It's the most tannic, so that first wine. But the aged nature of the wines makes them progressively more mellow on the tannic front. And so you have got this softness that can go so beautifully with the beef. And I really loved what you said about acidity. The acidity in these 3 is particularly special. So I think you completely, that fermented character plus the acidity in the wines, I couldn't agree more. Members, like I said, please make sure you keep tasting as you go. I want you to compare the 3, and then we're going to show you the videos now, and it will allow you an opportunity to hear from the producers themselves. I will warn you in advance that warn you sounds awful. Marco from Ciabat Baton is his English is okay, but his Italian's beautiful to listen to. So his video is in Italian and subtitles. The other 2 videos are in English. So just as a heads up, the first video will be in Italian, but with very, very clear subtitles. As before, if you're struggling to hear, please let me know. I have optimized the sound, so hopefully everything works. And as another reminder, I don't want anyone getting them confused, it's going to go Barolo, Rioja, and then the Malbec at the end, which it sounds like it might have been Simon's favorite, but we don't want to persuade you one way or the other just yet. I'll allow you to make up your own minds as we listen to the 3 videos of the producers.
Sono Marco Berto di Chabot Berton e sono un produttore di Barolo. Ho la fortuna di produrre questo grande vino proprio nel cuore della denominazione alla Morra. Il legame della mia famiglia con questo splendido vitigno, il Nebbiolo, è molto antico. Nella seconda metà del 1800, quindi circa 150 anni fa, Giuseppe, il mio trisnonno, con un grande sforzo ma con altrettanta lungimiranza, scelse con un investimento che adesso ci sembra ridicolo, ma per l'epoca non lo era, quindi un valore di circa 2 euro, scelse di comprare un piccolo terreno. In realtà non si trattava semplicemente di un terreno, ma già di un vigneto, coltivato già allora a Nebbiolo. Ed era soprattutto in una delle esposizioni migliori del paese, caratteristica questa che garantiva una elevata qualità e una costanza annata dopo annata. Ancora oggi seguiamo l'esempio di questo diciamo nostro lontano parente che anche visti i valori attuali dei vigneti fece sicuramente un ottimo investimento. Generazione dopo generazione abbiamo continuato a investire acquistando sempre piccoli appezzamenti, mai grandi terreni, ma sempre scelti con l'obiettivo della migliore qualità. Oggi Federica, mia moglie ed io portiamo avanti la nostra azienda che conta circa 20 ettari, per la maggior parte coltivati proprio a Nebbiolo. Prima come vignaioli e poi come produttori ci siamo sempre accostati al Barolo con il rispetto che merita questo grande vino. Rispetto soprattutto per le differenze che sono dovute al terreno, alle esposizioni e all'altitudine. In cantina quindi l'obiettivo è semplice, mantenere l'integrità delle sfumature che la natura ci regala. Lunghe e delicate macerazioni sono seguite da un lento affinamento in grandi botti di rovere di Slavonia che permettono di conservare intatto il potenziale dei grandi terreni di Langa. Il Barolo per questo evento è speciale, si tratta infatti di un'edizione unica creata appositamente per celebrare la collaborazione con The Wine Society. È frutto dell'unione di 4 dei nostri cru storici, tra cui anche quello della vigna del Trisnonno, quella da 2 euro. Sono uniti in proporzioni differenti proprio per cercare il miglior equilibrio ed eleganza. Questa edizione di Barolo era stata pensata nell'annata 2015, che aveva tutte le caratteristiche per dare un grande risultato. Poi successe qualcosa di inaspettato, ma molto gradito. Arrivò infatti l'annata 2016. Quindi cosa successe? Voi non so se sapete come sono i selezionatori di The Wine Society. Sono preparati, seri e professionali, anche amichevoli sicuramente, amano il buon cibo e il buon vino. Hanno però sempre una cosa sola in testa, la ricerca del prodotto migliore, della qualità migliore. Quindi quale fu il risultato? Potete immaginarlo. Arrivò una telefonata e mi dissero: Marco, potremmo parlare dell'annata del Barolo per l'evento? E quindi eccoci qua oggi con una iconica 2016 che rappresenta al meglio la grandezza del Barolo. Il colore caratteristico è quello del Barolo proprio, quindi rosso con riflessi aranciati. La grande espressività olfattiva unita alla complessità che i vari cru del Barolo ci regalano introducono poi alla dolcezza del sorso unita a una espressività tannica decisa. Proprio questo tannino, molto presente ma mai scomposto, rende ideale questo Barolo per il connubio perfetto con le carni rosse e soprattutto con la selvaggina, come ad esempio il cervo, che per le loro caratteristiche si sposano alla componente tannica di questo vino. Quindi salute e buona festa!
Fabulous. So that was our first video of the Barolo there. I'm going to talk about it a little bit with you all shortly, but I would like to play the 3 videos together so that you can get a real essence from each of the producers whilst you're tasting with your food. So we're going to watch the next video now, which is from Victor at, he's got our Gran Reserva Rioja, and it's the Imperial from Cuney. So I'm going to play his video now. I apologize if the volume was too loud now. I may have added my volume too loud. So I will do my best to make sure that it's the same as the previous few videos to keep you from changing it up and down.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victor Urrutia, and I run Cuney on behalf of my family. Cuney, or to give it its full name, Compañía Vinícola del Norte de España, has been a supplier for the Wine Society for as long as I can remember. The wine that I'm here telling you about today it's an Imperial, okay? It's Imperial 2004 Gran Reserva. Now this wine was selected by Pierre from the Wine Society many, many years ago, before the wine was finished. He did a very good job because out of all the different wines that he could have chosen, he chose what perhaps is our flagship, which is Imperial. We don't do this with anybody. We don't let anybody come and choose Imperial to make its own wine. But of course the Wine Society is something else. Another wine that we have as part of the 150th anniversary selection is our Contino. We're very, very proud of the fact that we have two wines as part of this celebration. Contino is a single vineyard. It's a different story. I'm here to talk to you now about Imperial. Now, this is a wine that we only make in vintages that we consider excellent. 2004 was excellent by any standard. The immediately previous vintage, 2003, was not very good at all. We made no Imperial. Neither was 1993. Neither was 2013. I'm starting to see a pattern here. And 2023, as you can imagine, there won't be any Imperial from this vintage either. But anyway, back to the 04. The 04 vintage was fantastic for us across Rioja. It's a textbook vintage. It did everything that it should. And this wine, to me, this is quintessential Rioja Alta. It's most at home with roast lamb, any kind of roast. And it has an acidity that carries it into long age and will live forever. There's an interesting story about this particular wine. It was selected by the Wine Society before it was finished. It was bottled and then was presented to the market as 2004 Imperial Gran Reserva. Now this wine was selected by the Wine Society, but also by the Wine Spectator magazine in the US as its wine of the year in 2013. And it was the first Spanish wine ever to receive this accolade. It was a huge deal for us, and we were suddenly flooded by demand for this wine that we couldn't possibly meet. I begged Pierre to let me have some of the Wine Society wine to supply the US with, and of course he said no, very politely but very firmly. It was a shame at the time, but I'm happy that this wine is made available for the Wine Society. I remember many, many years ago, somebody from the Wine Society mentioning to me that the oldest supplier for the Wine Society was Champagne Alfred Gratien, and that it had been a supplier for the Wine Society since the 1910s. And I was staggered by this. Since then, we've had world wars, the USSR has come and gone, and yet here we are. Cuney, my family's winery, was founded in 1879, so it's not quite as old as the Wine Society, which is from 1874, as you all know. But it's safe to say that we've both been around the block for quite some time. My wish is that someday we will become a centenary supplier to the Wine Society, my family and my winery, and I'm confident that this could happen because it's the wines are there, I believe, and of course the Wine Society is as demanding as ever. Here's to the next 150 years. May I ask you all to raise your glasses and toast with me. Cune, Imperial, and of course the Wine Society. Cheers.
Fabulous to hear from Victor there. And then last but not least, we're going to share with you the final video from Weinert and Aduna Weinert herself. And then we will discuss the three wines with you.
Hello, my name is Aduna Weinert. I am here at Bodega Cavas de Weinert in Mendoza, Argentina. I am at the cellars of the winery, and it is such a pleasure to speak to you about one of our most esteemed partners of the Wine Society and this beautiful wine which we have produced to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Society. So a little bit about history. The winery was founded by my father in 1975. My father was originally from the south of Brazil, and he arrived in Mendoza through transport business. So Mendoza is the passage, it's right at the foothills of the Andes, so it is the main passage for trucks between Argentina and Chile. And in the late 60s and early 70s, he began to come to Mendoza more frequently and realized that Argentina had a very beautiful wine culture, a very passionate industry, very old vines of Malbec, of Cabernet Sauvignon, of Merlot, among other grapes. And he basically fell in love with the wine business. He was a Bordeaux lover as well. And he had this passion and this obsession about long aging potential wines, right? So he bought a very old winery built in 1890 by an Italian family with very beautiful infrastructure, and especially the underground cellars is what is most impressive from Weinert. We have this beautiful underground cellar, 7 meters deep, and this is where, to this day, we have our very big cask collection. Our casks nowadays add up to 260 casks, of between 2,000, 6,000, 8,000 liters. All of them are from French oak, and mainly our focus is to produce mature vintages, so age our wines for a longer time before blending them and putting them into the market. The Wine Society has been such a big and beautiful client for us for so many years. I cannot even remember when Toby Morrell, our buyer, came the first time to Argentina. Maybe it was 30 years ago. I wasn't in the business at that point, but it has always been a very interesting way and very good feedback to come and go of wines that are in the UK and then try them again back home from year to year. And when Toby called me about the 150th anniversary and the celebration, the special wine that he had the idea to produce a mature Malbec. We had just finished a very big tasting here in Argentina. We tasted the 260 casks, and there was this one cask, number 141, which is a 15,000 liter cask, so one of the bigger ones that we have, which is absolutely amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I immediately said to Toby, I think I've got the wine for it. And this is back in 2020, so right in the middle of COVID. And this leads us to the wine that we have today. We are super proud and very honored, of course, to show this wine in such a beautiful celebration for the Wine Society. This is a 100% Malbec from one single cask, so the cask 141. And it comes from a vineyard which we call Finca Huarachi. Huarachi is the family that tends to this vineyard. Weinert has always dealt and bought a lot of grapes. We buy a lot of grapes from family-owned vineyards. So families which are in the third or fourth generation, like the Huarachis, for example, in the beautiful region of Luján de Cuyo. This is a very old vineyard as well, it was planted around 1910. And Malbec in Luján de Cuyo, and especially the old vine Malbecs, gives you such a beautiful, bright, ripe fruit expression, a lot of structure, very good ripe tannins, which is what we look for in the aging potential of our wines. This wine was finally bottled in 2022, so it's got 15 years of aging in this very large cask. The bigger the cask, it's very interesting what happens to the wine, because the very large casks, they allow the wine to develop the tertiary notes, their aging notes, so leather, tobacco, cedar wood, chocolate, so related more to the earthiness. But it also keeps that core of ripe fruit very vivid as well. So this wine is really interesting because you get a lot of the dog berries, a lot of the cherries and the plum expression, dry plums, but you also get this velvety texture, so very supple tannins, a lot of the cedar and the earthy notes going into the wine, which is why our suggestion is to have it with gamey meats, especially venison is a very lean meat, which, the acidity, the structure of the wine, the very nice tannins, the tannins are there, but they're very, very subtle. The texture of the wine is definitely going to go quite well with the gamey meats. So I do hope you enjoy our wine, the very special wine we have today. Thank you very much again for Toby and all of our friends from the Wine Society for the opportunity to show some of our wines, and especially this wine, our very mature Finca Huarache Malbec of the 2007 vintage. And happy birthday and salud.
So I'm sure you'll all agree it's great to hear such passionate producer videos, all very, very different from very different pockets in the world, but all equally passionate about the wines that they've produced for us. So yeah, they're lovely for me to watch those videos. It makes me quite emotional. The three wines themselves are quite varied. I think Simon did exactly the right thing, actually, choosing beef as the unifying wine. You heard them, a couple of the producers mentioned certain other meats, but I think the unifying theme is this idea of a little bit of earthiness. And not only has Simon got that in the meats, actually, he has, as we described earlier, he's got it in more of the fermented, acidic, all of those sorts of things as well. So I think it's a lovely combination. So thank you, Simon. I thought I'd just mention a couple more notes about each of the wines in case that people didn't feel like they had quite enough info. The Barolo is actually sold out, so I apologize if you're really enjoying it. It's the reason it's sold out is Chiabot Breton produced such a small amount of this particular wine, so it's a blend of a few parcels, as you heard them mention, but the La Mora vineyards on the hillside are beautiful, and there's one particular one, Racetivino, and I apologize if I've pronounced that incorrectly, but it's 400 meters above sea level, so it has this incredible freshness. It's got Slovenian oak, which is quite common, actually. Well, I'd say of all the sort of classic wine regions, Slovenian oak in Barolo is more common than others, although producers are playing with lots of different types of oak. And it's this lovely pale hue with this amazing orangey brick color that you would hope from a slightly aged Barolo made of the Nebbiolo grape. But the pale color shouldn't lull you into a false sense of security in terms of lightness. It really packs a punch. Fine tannins, red currants, cherries, that subtle use of the Slovenian oak. So I think it's a lovely, lovely wine. Is Barolo a wine that you often enjoy yourself, Simon?
Yes, I do love a Barolo. I think out of the three, it was very difficult to pick my favorite, if I'm being perfectly honest. But as you said that you thought the Malbec would be my favorite, I actually enjoyed the Imperial
Okay,
the
there we
most.
go.
Yeah. I mean, My wife and I drink a lot of Rioja because it's her favorite wine. So she normally buys the wine. I normally have to follow. And I just thought the acidity of that particular wine was absolutely fantastic, and it's a wine that I can really relate to, and really relate to that dish. It's something I really enjoy. Acidic wines like that.
Yeah, great. I mean, I love the Imperial style anyway. This 2004, I think, is
Mm.
particularly special. I actually
Yeah, it's
visited
delicious.
I visited Victor there a couple of years ago, and he sort of subtly said to me, and I didn't know, it must be 3 or 4 years ago now, I didn't know that we'd ring fenced this wine. All the wines, I should mention, were top secret until we started planning. So the buyers had been truffling away finding these wines. And as he showed me round, he said, well, we have a bit of a problem because we've got this 2004 that was, we were talking about storing wines. And he said, we've got this 2004, which was voted, the first great Spanish wine of Wine Spectator. But a particular wine club in the UK bought quite a lot of it. And I'm trying to get some back, but they won't let me have it back. So I had an inkling that this might be on show. So I took some notes down of what it involved, what it included, and I went back through my notes of my visit before preparing for this call. And it's around 85% Tempranillo and then sort of 15% of Graciano and Masuelo. And what's amazing is that this wine and other imperial wines, Victor told me they reject about 1,000 kilograms of grapes when they sort them with an optical sorting machine. So this is kind of the best of the best of the best of the wines that they produce here
Wow.
in the Cunet stable. And then not only that, I guess I was maybe a little misled, I should say. I thought, oh, okay, well, Grand Reserve is probably a little, well, maybe not misled, but I always assumed you learn when you're learning about wine that Grand Reserve is the most oaked wine because it has the longest legal time in barrel. But actually, what they do in Imperial, which is very interesting, is they take the Reserva wine, which is 80% new oak, so half US, half French, but packed full of flavor. Sometimes a touch of Hungarian, and I can't confirm or deny the 2004, but packed full of flavor. And they put that in the barrel for 2 years. And then actually those with a little more mellow oak flavor, those older barrels are then used for this Grand Reserva. So the way Victor described it is it's amazing with food. And he said lamb and roast meats, basically. So perfectly paired by Simon. But he also said it's the sort of wine that you can enjoy like a brandy at the end of dinner. And I really like that. I think that's a lovely sentiment. You can enjoy it well into the evening. And I think it's quite impressive when a wine can do that, be food friendly and not food friendly. And I think the Barolo for me is the food friendly wine. You have to have it with food. It's so tart, but I can so see what you're saying, Simon, about this being your favorite because it's indulgence in a glass.
Yeah, it's lovely. Really nice.
And then lastly, the Viner, I mean, I love listening to Aduna talk. It's the most affordable, I should say. It was £34. That's still available for sale. Normally Malbec is kind of a friendly, I think a lot of people assume that it's kind of juicy and ripe, and this is, but all of those things you spotted, Simon, about those earthy tones that Aduna then also mentioned. For me, that's what sets this. This is Malbec by another stratosphere. And for £34, I can't quite believe that we're drinking something this old, this cared for, in that amazing 141 cask. It's using old vines. I don't know if Aduna mentioned that in the video. I actually can't remember her mentioning it, but it uses particularly old vines, this plot. And those old vines are just packed full of flavor, full of texture, full of structure. And there's so much evidence to suggest now that old vines do that. They impart such concentration in the wines. But you can age this for as long as they have. I mean, it's wild. And Weinert is such a special producer to be able to do that. So I don't know which my favorite is, but I'm glad you've said the Rioja, largely because you obviously have a very
Yeah. Oh, wife would kill me if I didn't say the Rioja. So she's a big fan.
My
And yeah,
husband would too.
I'm very jealous of you supping on them now. I'm over here, and yeah, you're enjoying yourselves with them. I'd love to have another glass now, right now, in front of me.
I know I should mention poor Simon being in Hong Kong can't have the wines today. We actually have sent a second sample pack for him to enjoy them again, just because we felt so guilty. Hong Kong's slightly outside the Wine Society jurisdiction, but I hope that your
Yeah.
wife can enjoy the Grand Reserve Imperial at some point, because
Yes.
it's such a stonking wine.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is, yes, members, it's a wine that's sold out around the world, and that Kuhne had to ask for it back. You know, they wanted more stock, and for reasons unbeknown to me, it is still in stock, and even with more age and more complexity. That Grand Reserve will age for another 10, however many years you want to keep it, however more tertiary character you want in the wine. So snap it up, quite frankly. Remember that there's 1,200 other members tasting these today, so you're the only one with access to laptops, members, on this call. So I would behave wisely. So I have another question for you, Simon, before we move on and sort of go into pudding chat. But it's generally, what would you reach for on your Sunday roast? Here we are having a beautiful Sunday roast. What would be your go-to wine? Not your wife's Rioja. We'll have something else, although we can assume Rioja's up on the list.
I normally got a stock somewhere if my sommelier can work out for me. I love a Morgon.
Lovely.
That's my. I mean, I'm a great fan of Beaujolais type wines, and that's something that I really enjoy personally, without my wife, but she loves a Morgon too. But yeah, that's my favorite wine, to be honest. I will take that straight away if you gave me one.
Oh, good. A man of good taste. I also love the wines of Beaujolais. Hugely underrated. And I think
Yes.
you're right, for Sunday roasts, excellent, because they have enough complexity for these for darker meats. But I would love a Morgon with roast pork. I could easily have a Morgon with chicken, especially if you're making a bit of a richer sauce. So yeah, Sunday roast
Yeah.
Morgon sounds pretty good. I
Yes.
think the caliber of a Simon Rogan Sunday roast probably slightly greater than the caliber of an
It would
Anna
be lovely.
Sunday roast.
It will be lovely to be at home for a Sunday roast at the moment. Unfortunately, there's not many Sundays free at the moment. But I am actually back next Sunday, so I'll get the wife shopping, and let's do one. I think so. I think I've got a couple of bottles of Morgon left. So yeah, look forward to that.
Oh, good stuff. So we've got another section coming up. Hopefully, members, you've finished. Oh, I've got some. By the way, we are doing a vote on favorite wine overall, but I love to see when people write. We've had 3 comments. The first is for the Rioja from Alistair. The second is for the Malbec from Trisha, and the third is for the Barolo from Robert. So we couldn't be happier. We're already
Tough choice.
Yeah,
tough
exactly.
choice. Yeah.
But we will do a vote at the end as well. But please write your comments. Let us know what you're thinking of these wines. They really are, 1 in a million wines. They're exceptional. So what I'd love you to do, Simon, is if you could talk a little bit about the pudding. So maybe even a bit about the flavor combination as well, because for me, when I first read it on the page, I thought, wow. And then what we'll do is we will play the Sauternes video before it. So we'll actually do both parts first, because I don't want the Sauternes to get too warm. So what we'll do is you'll talk about the food, we'll play the video, then we'll let people go off. It's a nice quick one, this one, to cook or assemble, I should say. And then we'll meet back. So a little bit about the pudding, please, Simon.
So it's a fig infused set cream with gooseberry and almond. So you've got a fig infused set cream, gooseberry juice, oxalis sorrel, and marigold cress. It's got some gluten-free almond biscuit on it as well. So the set cream is infused with fig leaves, which sort of grow around the perimeter of our farm. We've got gooseberry juice, from this year's harvest, which adds a real tartness and balance to the dessert. And we've got those lovely almonds, adds sweetness and crunch. And then you've got the oxalis, the sorrel, gives a slight citrus flavour to it. And the marigold, which is one of my favourite herbs, which has a lovely apple skin flavour to the dessert as well, which so we have that on our menus across the world. And I would say that, like, I think the wine, you know, has a real honey and beeswax texture, which will obviously beautifully match the texture of the set cream, I think. Richer flavors, fruit flavors in the wine bring out the sweet marzipan notes in the dessert. But I think the elegance and the acidity in the wine will really harmonize with the gooseberry juice. So, you know, once again, a lovely, fresh, light, acidic dessert. And I mention acidity all the time, but I mean, I'm a big fan of it in my cookery. It's something to really finish the meal nicely and sort of really refresh the palate after all those lovely rich flavors that you've hopefully enjoyed.
Yeah, and I have to say, what an amazing dessert. I'm glad that it's enjoyed all around the world. It seems like such a lovely, ingenious combination. For me, what I really like as well was when you chose to pair this, and I won't be, you know, giving away the golden goose too much, but this is a blend of 93% Semillon and 7% Sauvignon Blanc. So that beeswaxy texture and nature really does come from the Semillon. And so picking up on that character, that richness and depth, I think a lot of people would have immediately gone to, and funnily enough, I think in the video Jean-Jacques mentions it, immediately gone to something like an apple tarte tatin, something very French. And actually what I love with this combination is the interplay of sort of fruits, the dairy, the lactic element of it as well is just really special. And the sweetness, the tartness, it's a lovely match. So I think what's best is we can show the members the video. You can hear Jean-Jacques talk about it. You can keep those ideas in your head, and then we'll let everyone go off camera for a 5-minute break, put it back together, come back, and we can have a little bit more of a chat about sweet wine pairings, because they're a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to pop the video on now, and bear with me. Hopefully that comes up right away. Yep, so it's just a shorter video. This one's 3.5 minutes, and then we'll let everyone go off and cook.
Hello, my name is Jean-Jacques Dubourdieu. I'm co-owner of Château d'Oisiden, a classified estate in 1855, situated in Barsac. Our family ran this estate since 1924, so we are also celebrating our centenary this year. Château d'Oisiden is situated in Barsac, on the limestone part of the appellation. We have the chance to work with the Wine Society for more than 40 years, with our historical wine Château d'Oisiden, but also with all of our estates, Clos Floriden, Château Renon, Château Cantegril, and Château Auras. It's a real chance to have partner like that in UK, and we are very proud and glad to continue this partnership for many more years, we hope. Château d'Oisiden 2016 was an excellent vintage, maybe the best vintage we had in the last decade. We had everything in the same time, a very warm summer, the perfect rain mid-September to bring the botrytis attack at the right time. And on top of that, a very generous yield that we didn't have for the last 10 years. In d'Oisiden, we love fermentation in oak. Actually, this is the perfect way to to adapt the wine to the aging, but also a wonderful way to select. So in Sauternes we harvest small quantities every day, and the fermentation in barrel, it's a way to separate every small quantities to make at the end of the harvest the best blend. So the selection we make at Château d'Oisiden for the Wine Society is in Barsac, and in Barsac we have the chance to make very elegant wine with a real concentration, but in the same time high acidity and low pH. It's really making Doisiden very special, because in the meantime we have concentration and freshness, which is the secret when you make sweet wine. So 2016 is still in its young life, so you can feel in the noise the fresh apricot and pineapple, and in mouth you feel the complexity of this vintage. We really feel that the aging for this wine will be at least 1 more century. The perfect pairing for this wine can be dessert, of course, like a strawberry or apricot tart, but also a French Roquefort in opposition with a sweet flavor could be a wonderful pairing. Santé!
Fantastic. So, members, we are now going to return in 10 minutes. So, if you can rejoin the call at 40, that gives you 9 minutes, but I think this is an assembly, so it should be okay. Please do remember, as I'm about to make sure you pour your Sauterne as well as prepare your dessert. And if you want to, you can also pour your port now and allow it a little bit of time to get some oxygen. So we'll see you at 40 past the hour, giving you just around 8-9 minutes. Thanks. Hello again, members. I hope that you have all managed to prepare your desserts. I often think that desserts are some of the prettiest courses, so hopefully you all got a little bit creative. If you do have a smartphone to hand, it would be great to see some photographs. You can send those to tastings@thewinesociety.com, and we'll compile a little montage. Any photographs, take a snap of where you're enjoying your lunch, take a snap of the food you've prepared. Maybe it's you with a glass of wine. We'd love to all share in this gorgeous Sunday celebration. So please do send them to us. We'd love that. So the I've just put it on the floor, sorry. My Sauterne and my port are poured. That's harder to say after a few glasses, isn't it? But the Sauterne is this amazing honeyed colour that you can see in the glass there. Simon's already alluded to some of the characteristics of it. This kind of beeswax nature, a real richness of texture that is quite incredible. Then the wine's 93% Semillon, as I mentioned, and 7% Sauvignon Blanc. So Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc both naturally have quite good acidity, which is brilliant for sweet wines pairing with food. And I think to the point Simon was making earlier, that acidity is quite good at cutting through the richness, should we say, of a set dessert like this. But the fruity characters certainly come alive, in my opinion, when you pair them with something so fruity as this. I'm a big fan. So you spoke, Simon, about your acidity. I'm a big fan of kind of tart and sweet fruits together. I find that a really fun thing to play with. It harks back right to that Chardonnay at the beginning. And I mentioned when I was talking about the Chardonnay how a wine like this is produced by several passes through the vineyard, the less ripe right through to the more ripe over the course of several weeks. So for me, that's what makes Sauternes so special, because you get that complexity from, quite frankly, human intervention. But it's sold out, this wine, so I do apologize if people haven't already grabbed a tasting of it. If you're watching without the samples, we have got some sample kits left. So if you're watching without the samples and you think, gosh, I really want to try one of these wines, particularly from the likes of Jean-Jacques, whose father, Denis du Bordeaux, is basically the godfather of white wine production in Bordeaux. So wines like this are unique, as are the wines we've tasted all afternoon. But if you do fancy it, there are still a few packs available to buy, so snap them up quickly. When you're pairing sweet wines or talking about sweet wines with your foods in your various restaurants, Sauternes is probably the best known. Would you say it's something that you serve regularly, or are there other sweet wines? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, for sure. We're known to serve a cheeky sherry as well. We do like a nice sherry. And then getting back to the sparkling again, a nice glass of rosé is one of my favorites. So yeah, I mean, right across the board, and we've got quite an innovative, creative sommelier team that like to really sort of stretch the limits of pairings in that field, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. This is a very traditional wine to be served at the end of the meal. And Jean-Jacques mentioned his, French tartare, that would be a very classic traditional pairing, or apricot, because of those apricot fruits coming from the Semillon. He also mentioned blue cheese, another sort of classic pairing. But what I like about what you guys did is you've introduced a really different pairing for this wine, with lots of other elements that maybe stretch people a bit more and make them think.
I mean, it's interesting to say that all the items that we use actually go well with the things he mentioned as well. So
yeah,
obviously they're all interlinked and are connected in some way.
Okay, so what you're saying is a lot of the flavor things like apricot, etc., the elements of
Figs with cheese, obviously the marigold's got a lovely apple flavor. So all these things he's spot on, and they're sort of linked to what we've used in the dessert, I think.
Brilliant. And I was also a little surprised to see figs Is that something, is that a locally
But they're not
sourced?
figs, it's flavored with fig leaf.
Oh, fig leaf,
So
pardon me.
we haven't got the climate, unfortunately, to
That's
have
what I was going to ask.
lots of figs. Like, we get figs, but they tend to take about a few years to ripe, and then by then they're soft and squidgy anyway. So no, we get tremendous flavor from the actual leaf. So we scrunch up leaves in flavored creams and that to give it that lovely marzipan flavor. It gives off a lot of flavor, and we've got them all around the perimeter of our farm, so we have a abundance of them.
Brilliant. Yeah, I was going to say I was a little bit shocked, and I thought, oh gosh, must get myself down to Cartmel for a suntan. Goodness.
Yeah. No, unfortunately not the case, no.
Well, I think honestly it's an absolutely beautiful dessert, and I have one more question before we move on to just talk generally about ports and cheeses, because I know we didn't include a cheese in the pack intentionally, but we wanted to talk about cheese with you and talk about your favorites and pairings in general. But for yourself and this particular dessert, the set cream element, it's not something I've come across very often. And is it something people can create at home, or is it a very technical creation?
Oh, easy. Yeah, no, easy. I mean, it's like obviously it's going in a glass, so you can make it as soft or as hard as you want without the fear of it sort of either bouncing across the plate or oozing onto the plate. So it's in a glass, so it's well and truly contained. But no, it's just a case of getting the right amount of gelatin, and getting that flavor into the cream. It's a very easy procedure.
So it's all really about the infusion and making sure that the right flavors are getting into that cream.
Exactly, and then we're obviously, it's like a French set bavaroise. You can incorporate some yolks in there for richness and give it a bit of body as well. So, and then you could add maybe a little bit of meringue at the end to give it some lightness as well. It's how far you want to go really, but a nice set cream like a panna cotta. Basically, it's just flavored cream or flavored milk with gelatin and sugar, and that's basically it.
Brilliant. Well, it's delicious. I always find with meal kits, maybe it's just you've enjoyed the whole experience, but I often find, because I'm not a huge dessert cooker, that I get the most pleasure out of this final course, because it stretches what I would normally prepare for myself. And this one was no exception to that rule. It makes me want to try and create these things at home. So thank you for the inspiration.
No worries. No.
And we've got the final video before we come back, and we're just going to talk a little bit about cheese pairings in general. I think, members, we'd asked you if you wanted to buy cheeses, but you can just enjoy the port by itself. If you wanted to buy cheeses, we'd pushed towards kind of hard, salty cheeses and blue cheese. But I think most importantly, make sure that you have the port ready to taste. I'm going to play the port video for you. It's quite a long video compared to the others, purely because we didn't have a course to pair with it. So I asked Anthony Symington to create something a little bit longer. He also talks, don't worry, about decanting. If you've bought a bottle, I recommend you just pour it through a sieve if you're desperate, but also you could just pour the bottle very, very gently and try and leave the sediment at the bottom. Don't pour it all the way down. However, if you're tasting from the packs, as many of you I know are, there's my vintage port pack there, this has already been decanted for you. So please, when he talks about decanting, don't panic that you haven't done that. Also, when he talks about using different glasses for port, yes, you can use whichever glass you pick. I actually drink my port out of white wine glasses. I don't love the very, very small glasses. I don't find I get enough aroma and enough enjoyment. So it's each to their own. Don't feel obliged. But I am going to play you the port video now. And then Simon and I are going to join back again in 10 minutes, where we'll have a brief discussion for a couple of minutes on ports, cheeses, etc. And then we'll move right on into the Q&A. So enjoy, everyone. And I hope that you have as much envy watching Anthony Symington in the middle of the Douro as I do. Enjoy.
Anthony Symington, fifth generation member of the Symington family to produce port wines here in northern Portugal in the Douro Valley. I'm sitting here today in our lodges in Vila Nova de Gaia, overlooking the wonderful city of Oporto behind us, where the wine that I have great pleasure to introduce today was carefully cellared ahead of being released to you to commemorate the Wine Society's 150th anniversary. The wine itself is the Society's 150th anniversary vintage port from 2011, which we chose with, along with Mark Buckingham, to commemorate this amazing milestone in the Wine Society's history. We've been working with the Wine Society throughout our mutual histories, and it is a massive sense of pride to be asked to produce a wine to celebrate this marvellous occasion. 2011 is a legendary year in the port world. It was one of the best vintages of the last century. It's a year characterised by sort of structure and finesse. It's a very unusual combination to have in a single year. So often one talks about finesse and elegance, meaning that the wine is slightly lighter bodied, but actually 2011 bucks the norms with this, in that you've got this wonderful elegance, purity of fruit, elevated aromas, but then you've got the structure, and it's basically a big wine, which gives it that longevity, that aging potential. At just over a decade old, it's just entering its drinking window, but will continue to sell it for many years. So 2011, what came to mean that this wine turned into what it is today, with this incredible structure and flavour profile, is the weather conditions of that year. So we essentially are farmers. We grow a crop of grapes that we're lucky enough to be able to turn into wine. And we have state-of-the-art wineries. We look after the vineyards in the best possible way, but we are still at the mercy of the weather gods and what they throw at us, which inevitably affects the crop, as it does for farmers all around the world. 2011 started as quite a topsy-turvy year. To say the weather was slightly confused for the first 6 months was to be putting it bluntly. We started the year with snow in the Douro, which is very unusual, but actually as snow melts quite slowly, it was perfect for replenishing the depleted water supplies in the earth after a few drought years. We then had quite a warm spring, early spring in March, which helped bud burst, followed by a very cool late spring, early summer, sort of between end of April and early June, which was unusual. It was annoying for people coming here on holiday who were expecting to be able to spend time on the beach, but actually for the vines it was a perfect way to slowly and evenly mature. At the end of June and coming into July, we then had a couple of heat spikes over 40 degrees, and some of the thinner skinned grape varieties like Tinta Barroca really suffered in that. But the hero Portuguese grapes from the Douro, Touriga Nacional and Touriga Franca, which in great years make up the majority of the proportion of a vintage port blend, performed incredibly. And the hallmark often of a great year is if we have a couple of days of light rain at the end of August, start of September, which refresh the vine, followed by a few days of sun for it to rebalance, to allow the grapes to come into the winery in perfect condition. And this all aligned perfectly in 2011, allowing us to produce this wonderful wine. I remember the sense of excitement in the winery as we were making these wines. And as we then tasted them over the following year, we knew that this was a phenomenon, a once-in-a-generational wine to produce. I decanted it earlier, another bottle earlier, in order to allow it to breathe a bit. It's got that wonderful opulence, lively violets and even rose on the nose, bit of plummy dark fruits, which is just accentuated and continues to the palate. As I mentioned, all that structure is very much there. You've got like great, lovely sort of tea leaf, dark fruit, some mocha, coffee tones in a way. It's a really, really dark chocolate, really wonderful wine that just goes on for forever. I'm sure you will agree with me that this is a perfect tribute to the Wine Society's 150th anniversary. Decanting, most of you are familiar with. For those of you who aren't, it's essential for a vintage port because it's been stored unfiltered, so the sediment helps it evolve. Very easy. Just stand the bottle upright for half an hour or so, then pour it through a fine mesh into a decanter a couple of hours before you want to serve it. Worth washing out, rinsing out your decanter with some wine beforehand in case it's been a bit dusty on the shelf. What to serve it with? Well, cheese is the obvious and the traditional one, which is phenomenal and a great pairing. But also, one of my favourites is chocolate. Dark chocolate, particularly the dark chocolate, really marries well with those tannins and those dark fruit flavours in vintage port. It's a personal preference and also depends on your feelings on that individual day. This wine will continue to evolve. It's just starting to get into its drinking window now. It's really in a purple patch. I think it's absolutely wonderful now, but will continue to evolve very, very well for many, many years. Make sure you serve it in a good sized port glass. Like this one, you need to be able to accentuate those flavour or aromatic components. If you have it in too small a thimble glass, you lose a lot of that profile which we get through our nose. I'm sure, I hope that you agree with me that you will enjoy it as much as I do and as much as we did putting it together with the Wine Society to commemorate this wonderful moment. All I want to leave you with is firstly to wish the Wine Society a very happy birthday, and also I hope you enjoy the wine. Thank you very much.
So it was lovely to hear from Anthony there, our final producer of today. For anybody who hasn't managed to taste this wine yet, we do still have stock of this one for £49 a bottle. And as you heard him mention, it's really a wine that will do some great cellaring, so you can keep it for a while. It's also a wine that probably our drink window has been a little conservative on. So I think on the website, and Mahesh may be able to check behind the scenes, but I think on the website we wrote 2035. And I think Anthony would agree that that's is a hugely conservative estimate. The next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to have a little bit of a discussion about port in general, but I think Anthony did a far better job than I can talking about the tea leaf aromas, the character, etc. So I won't do a tasting per se, but I will talk about why I think it would go so beautifully with the cheeses that hopefully you have at home. But Simon, just before we move on to that, are there any local cheeses to the UK? Because I'm very conscious that we've mentioned Roquefort, and I was going to mention some hard French cheeses, and I should behave because whilst I have a French inclination, this is very much a British menu. So what would be your preference?
Stitchelton all the way for me. It's my favourite blue cheese, and I think what nicer way to enjoy a nice glass with a nice sliver of Stitchelton. So that's by far my favourite blue cheese. But I mean, I'm obviously, as you know, I'm a massive lover of British artisan cheese, and we make the best cheese in the world, in my opinion, now. And being from Hampshire as well, obviously, I'm a big champion of Tunworth cheese, which is going off winning awards all around the world. And I would say Berkswell was probably one of my favorite cheeses to drink with port, but unfortunately I didn't make it anymore. So that's a big loss to the world. So almost Parmigiano in sort of texture and flavor, in my opinion. Unfortunately, that's lost to us. So probably settle with a nice chunk of Westcombe cheddar or something like that instead. So those would be the three I would go to: Stitchelton, Tunworth, and Westcombe.
Amazing. What a brilliant answer. We've done a few events. I say we, obviously in my previous life when I was in the tastings team, doing these sorts of things, but the team have carried on certainly doing some amazing cheese events. And Stichelton's always there are
Oh,
a handful of cheeses, Baron Bigod, and it's by Bigod
yeah,
or
Baron Bygott. Yeah,
Bigod, yeah.
for sure.
Baron Bigod
Yeah.
and Stichelton were the two English cheeses that always, without fail, blew everybody out of the water.
I mean, two of the things I love most in the world, acidity and salt. And the Stichelton's got it in. It's real lip smacking flavor. And I mean, God, it's so good. It's one of my favorites.
Well,
Once
you
again, I'm in Hong Kong now. I don't think there's any Stichelton round the corner for me to go and ravage at the moment. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait until next week when I get home.
Oh, that sounds like another Sunday plan for you.
Yeah,
But you've
desserts
actually
planned. Yeah.
exactly you've actually just perfectly nailed the pairing concept, really, of why those cheeses, in particular Stichelton or something with those two characters, work so well with port.
Yeah.
And it is that acidity and salt. So
Yeah.
port has this incredible naturally high acidity for something grown in such a hot climate. Anthony alluded to quite a few interesting things, but one of them really is the grape varieties. So it has some very, very naturally high acid grape varieties. And then you have the intense sweetness, which is almost, so often with acid, you need high acid wines to marry the high acid cheeses, which it does in abundance. But the contrary, or the kind of conflict pairing, which is really fun, which is that unbelievably salty, almost to the point of I'm a sucker for salt too, Simon. I could have it to the point where it burns my tongue a little bit. It's so awful. Not very good for you, but I'm obsessed. But that very, very salty saline cut through of the fruit. So very overpowering berry fruit.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the second pairing Anthony mentioned, which I think is really interesting, is the chocolate. And for me, often chocolate and the kind of cocoa leaf thing goes very well with port's tea leaf element, something else Anthony talked about. There can be quite a herbaceous character to both of those things if you have the right ones. Sadly, the old dairy milk might not cut it with a 2011 vintage. It might be delicious, but I've not tried it. Sometimes the higher end and the everyday can be a match made in heaven. But I think really what you want to be doing is looking for those high quality, fine chocolates. Can't imagine there are many UK based chocolate producers, but I'm sure they're getting their cocoa beans somewhere. But certainly, would there be any other flavor that you could imagine as an alternative to chocolate that's UK based?
Chocolate.
Quite a hard one to
really.
Yeah.
Not
when you're
really. No. I mean, we've pretty much found substitutes for everything else, for vanilla and different things like that, but not really chocolate. I can't really think of anything that we would use, to be fair.
No, that's fair enough.
That's why chocolate's not on our menu at Longclume, because we can't actually grow it, and there's nothing like it. So yeah, it's unfortunately the pastry chef gets a bit angry, but that's the way it is. We do chocolate I do allow him a chocolate for a petit four, because we look back at the British Empire and the trade it developed with the chocolate routes and stuff like that. So we've got some sort of connection, but yeah, we don't grow it here, so we don't use it in abundance.
No, there we go. Good. It was amazing on one of the previous calls hearing about alternatives to things like lemon that you have to find that can be so challenging, citrus fruits, which we all take for granted, but it's such a pleasure to hear. Well, we've had one member who's just said, how about bouja from Norfolk? I don't even know what that is, Alistair.
No, I don't know what bouja is. What is
no.
bouja?
Alistair,
it doesn't sound very British to me. Yes.
If you can let us know, that would be great. So fabulous. I hope that members have enjoyed those wines. I certainly have. And I'm going to continue to enjoy those, particularly those final two wines through to the afternoon. But we are now moving into the Q&A portion. Before I move on, actually, pardon me, I think I've had a message from Brooke who said you had something to add to the comment on gelatin, Simon. Was that correct? That it's not actually gelatin, that it's...
Oh, yeah, I was saying in general for a set cream, it would be gelatin, but this one's actually set with agar, obviously a seaweed-based gelling agent, which is say vegetarian friendly.
There we go. So yes. So just in case anybody was a bit worried about the gelatin comment, we didn't have anybody worried. I think they were all enjoying it too much, but just in case. And so yes, I think it's time to move on to the Q&A section. I'll quickly answer one question that came in earlier because oh, sorry, pardon me. Yes, sorry. We had one question that came in earlier, and Brooke has asked me to just fill in on answering it. It was about whether you can freeze your desserts as the member was thinking about serving them. Freeze your meals as the member was thinking about them at Christmas. And my understanding, Simon, is that freezing them, not such a good idea with the fresh produce, but that you do Christmas.
We do Christmas, yes. So is that a plug? Are we getting a plug on air now?
You're getting a plug, an on-air plug.
Well, I mean, we do Christmas. We do hundreds and hundreds of Christmas special meals, and we sell out very quickly. So they are around. Keep tuned for details, and then, you know, they're quite successful, very popular. It takes. I think people love them so much because it really takes the stress out of Christmas. It's very easy to construct, and you can enjoy Christmas Day and still have a fabulous Christmas Day lunch as well. So we do Christmas for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Yes, that was honestly not a planned plug. It was,
oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, they
yes.
normally sell out anyway. I'm not sure with Brooke whether we're up in capacity this year, because we always sell out very quickly and we can do a lot more. But that's why they're so special. We don't go too crazy with the numbers. It's just, once it's sold, it's sold.
Yeah. And I think she mentioned to me on a message earlier that they might be going live towards the end of the month. So if you don't already subscribe to Simon's mailers, etc., just make sure that you get in there and get online. Make sure that if you are interested. It was Ruth, I think, that asked. So yes. Yeah, they were thinking of Christmas, and I thought, how well organized of you, Ruth. Well done.
Oh my God, we're thinking of Christmas already. Where has the year gone?
Where has it gone? So my first question in the Q&A was around preservation. We touched on it earlier, so preserving things. What are some of the tips and tricks for preserving things like fruits that you can recommend, Simon?
Well, obviously get them as quickly as possible. You should always be preserving things at their optimum state rather than something disintegrating already. Yeah, I mean, probably free. Syrups, we bottle berries. We grow a lot of different currants and berries, strawberries, what have you, and obviously bottling them by putting them in jars, and then cooking them to sterilize them, and they'll just sit there for quite some time. So that's probably one of the biggest ways we use it. Fermenting them as well. Just simply freezing them, I mean, is pretty good. So we're making coulis, the old trick of making coulis, and then just putting them in your ice dispensers to pop them out when you want to make a dessert, to make like a set cream, for instance. Like a nice coulis with some dairy and gelatin or agar as a vegetarian. Yeah, I mean, probably that's the three ones that we use the most, I would say.
Yeah.
Unless you get into freeze drying, which might be a little bit difficult. That's a fairly hefty machine we've got for doing that. And I'm just trying to think
I think
what else we do. Probably the bottling is the most prolific thing we do.
Okay, that's good to know. It's something also that I'm so glad a member asked, because my husband and I are always wondering what to do with. There's an abundance of fruit that grows in quite a shortish season, in the south of France where we are. We're very lucky to have lots.
Yeah.
But we've bought an air fryer recently, so we're going to try. We've yet to be successful. Try to do some freeze drying with an air fryer, but I've seen it done, but I'm not totally confident. I think, like you say, you need a big,
I've
nice.
not tried that yet. I mean, my wife's it's my wife's latest toy that she absolutely loves, and she's done just about everything you can think of in it. I didn't know about the freeze drying thing, so I'll have to look that one up and see what that's all about. That sounds interesting.
It may not work, so I don't know. But syrups is a great idea, so I'm pleased you've mentioned that. We also have another question. So actually, we have, just to jump back, and I apologize, we had a member quite rightly point out that I hadn't really spoken about the parsnip in the main course with, and wondered if you could talk a little bit about the parsnips that you grow. Why is it a good, a good alternative to a meat-based dish? So if you wouldn't mind just jumping all the way back 3 wines ago to talk about that, that would be amazing.
Well, once again, I love like, elevating especially a root vegetable into a form that you wouldn't really miss a meat dish if you had that dish. So I love parsnips. I love the flavor of them. The really sort of like anise notes of it, and we cook them in reduced whey. So once again, lots of acidity, braising down there, adding lots of acidity to the outside of the parsnip. We've got that lovely anise meaty texture inside it, and then when you just roast it off as well, giving it that caramelization, I think that's more than a substitute for a big chunk of steak or the short rib that we mentioned. So
brilliant. Thank you very much for filling in that gap. It was remiss of me actually to not mention it, because as I said earlier, your vegetarian options are always so brilliant. So thank you. So the next question is totally wine related, not food related, but hopefully you'll indulge. We have had a member ask for your desert island wines. That was a question from Tom.
Probably let me think. I was going to think of which was, obviously I mentioned the Morgan earlier. A really good Echarzo, I think, is probably top of my list. I normally, if I'm really being extravagant on a wine list, or I'm there at a guest, I test out their means by searching out an Echarzo and seeing if they'll serve it to me. But no, I love the wine. It's one of that's probably my desert island wine, brilliant, if you like.
Do you find that as such a esteemed and renowned chef around the world, people are keen to, serve you nice wines, find you that bottle that's not on the list? Do you find that?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate that into one of my compatriots' restaurants, and they say, can we cook for you, and can we supply, can we supply you with wines and make your evening for you on us. That's generally saying, well, yeah, okay, yeah, no worries. But occasionally you might get trapped, and they'll do that and then give you a very, very hefty bill at the end of it. So you have to be careful with that. So it's happened once or twice when I thought I was really getting taken care of. For me, I mean, if I say that to one of my peers, I'd be looking after the bill. But there's been a couple of times where I've been caught, and we've had some pretty prestige wine pairings, thinking, wow, this is very generous, and then being hit with a very large bill at the end of it. So it's take the rough with the smooth. They're always enjoyable, come what may. If you've got to pay for it, so be it. These things are are things to be enjoyed, aren't they? So
absolutely, yeah, took that on the chin, that one. So another question, we've got 2 more, so members do get a couple more in. I've got my final 2 questions, so we've got 5 more minutes of Simon's time. So before poor guy has to go to sleep at some point. He's got such a busy
No,
week.
I'm
Um,
fine.
but, pardon me. Oh, sorry, there was somebody else writing in the chat. The Tracy has just come in and asked, would Simon ever do Great British Menu again? Really enjoyed your lockdown special Christmas series that both he and Tom competed in.
No, not at all. No, I mean it was. I shouldn't have gone back in as such an old codger, trying to compete with all these youngsters. That I mean, it's from when I competed in way back in 2012. In the program has just leapt in complexity, and some of the ideas that these youngsters come out with these days is just. Is incredible, and I can't catch up with that sort of thing. I mean, I can comment on the flavors and the way they're executed, so that's why I remain as a judge these days. It's much easier to be a judge than compete in that kitchen, believe me.
Well, I think you deserve it as well. You've earned it, Simon, so I wouldn't worry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I quit at the top. I got through to the banquet, and that was it. Never to appear again. Obviously, we went back for Christmas because it was. For a very good cause, and it was something that had to be done. It was great fun, it was great fun. Not great fun with the result, but I was really glad to be there, and it was such a great atmosphere. Such great
People
chefs.
enjoy watching you as much as anything, regardless of the result. Tracy sounds like she really enjoyed.
Yeah, the result didn't matter. Obviously, the message was the troubles we were going through at the time, and looking after the essential workers and NHS and stuff like that. So that was such a great thing to be part of, I think.
Brilliant, thank you. I've had a very interesting question from James, who has asked, what 3 factors would you consider as the greatest contribution to your 3 stars? Question, James.
Tasty food, obviously. I mean that's you think that's obvious, but it's not so obvious, because a lot of guys see food as something that should above and beyond look nice rather than taste nice, and sometimes that's forgotten. So I think food has been the flavor is obviously the most important thing. The message, I think, is very, very important as well. To sort of have food that's got sort of connection to its surroundings, and we're always trying to take those ingredients and add a different dimension to them. I think that's what's I think the difference between 2 stars and 3 stars is very small. I think the guys that try to take those amazing dishes and just elevate them to a whole new dimension. I think that's another very, very important thing. I think simplicity is also quite important. It's I think as we've got better at growing our ingredients, then the food's got simpler, and I'm a real true believer in less is more, and not overcomplicating things, and not being too fussy on the plate. So I think those things are very, very important. And a great team obviously is huge, to have a great team around you, which I have, where everyone's pulling together and has the same vision and same ideals and ambitions is and they're all passionate beyond belief is quite important.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
I don't know how many that is. There's a million things, to be fair. I couldn't really highlight just 3. I think there's so many different elements that but then who am I to? I don't know. I mean, we just try and cook the best food we can and give our guests the best experience they've had. And I suppose if you can achieve that, then you've always got a chance. But I don't know the formula. That's just luckily it's happened for me, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Oh, well, that's actually a really lovely sentiment to end on. And especially, I wanted to say a thank you to how amazing your team have been, and a particular name mentioned to Brooke, who has always worked so tirelessly behind the scenes to put these things together with us. So It
Yeah.
has honestly been a pleasure working with you, Brooke, again, but also with you, Simon, Mahesh, behind the scenes. It's been
Thank you. Well, thank you for asking me on this 150th anniversary. It's great. It's it's very proud.
We wouldn't have asked anybody else. Well, honestly, there wouldn't be anybody else we'd have wanted to do it with. Your foods are always incredible, and
Well, thank you very much.
the pairings have been amazing. So
Thank you very much.
members for coming as well. I hope to see you all again, either in person in the future or maybe at another online event. Perhaps I'll be joining as a guest. I don't know, but who knows? But it's been a pleasure to do this one-off special. And Simon, I hope that we can meet one day, and who knows where, but I certainly would love to come and taste some of your foods in person. So I think I might be booking in next time I'm back in the UK.
Well, we've got a few restaurants around the world now, wherever you are, and hopefully we've got a few more coming up in the new year. So I'm sure we'll our paths will meet somewhere.
I hope so. Well, Santé to everyone. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a lovely afternoon and a lovely evening, Simon. Maybe a little snooze.
Yeah, not quite, nearly. Good night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all. Good night.
Good night.